Oh, big shout. Finger goes up. Ryan does the job for Australia.
Yeah, and does the job for Australia. Indeed, a record crowd in attendance over the 5 days at the Melbourne Cricket Ground as the fourth test ended early on Monday morning Caribbean time. The Australians, taking victory after a collapse for the ages, snatching 7 wickets in the final session on day 5 to claim a 184-run victory and a famous test win. Of course, here in the region, we watched live on SportsMax as the Aussies added just 6 runs to their overnight second innings total of 229 for 9 before Jasprit Bumrah, who had second innings figures of 5 for 57, completed a 13th career 5-wicket haul, pegging back the poles of Nathan Lyon with Australia 339 runs ahead. Now, a cautious start from openers Yashasvi Jaiswal and skipper Rohit Sharma provided no immediate indication of whether India harbored thoughts of hunting down the 340 runs required in the remaining 92 overs, or if the plan was to simply save the test. The pair managed to frustrate the host seamers for 16 overs before player of the match Pat Cummins had his opposite number caught at gully playing across the line. Cummins, who finished with figures of 3 for 28, had 2 in the over when KL Rahul was caught at slip 5 balls later for a duck. And India's predicament worsened when Mitchell Starc and Virat Kohli caught behind on the stroke of lunch, driving loosely outside the off stump to leave them at 33 for 3. Jaiswal, 84, though, was joined by Rishabh Pant upon resumption, and the pair shared in a 32-over stay at the crease, batting through the tee in an 88-run 4th-wicket stand. However, the latter's decision to take on part-time spinner, let's just call him Travis, after the break, turned the game on its head. Yeah, you get the picture. The left-hander was caught in the deep after being tempted into a pull shot. Australia quickly returned to Scott Boland, who took 3 of the remaining 6 wickets on his way to figures of 3 for 39. India tumbling from 121 for 3 to be dismissed for 155. Now, India's under-fire captain Rohit Sharma was left defending both his leadership and his personal poor run of form following the defeat.
I stand where I'm standing today. There is nothing to think about what has happened in the past. Obviously, few results have not gone our way. As a captain, yes, that is disappointing. And yes, as a batter as well. A lot of the things that I'm trying to do is not falling in the place that I would want to. But mentally, look, it is disturbing without a doubt. If you've come here and you want to come here and try and do successfully what you're supposed to, and if those things don't fall in place, that is a big disappointment. But as of now, that is where it is, and there are things that we as a team need to look at. I personally need to look at as well. So we'll try and see what happens. There's still a game to go, and if we can play that game well, it's 2-all. So a draw will be really nice.
Rohit Sharma, the India captain. Meanwhile, Australia skipper Pat Cummins declined commendations for his outstanding performance, opting instead to shed the spotlight on his charges.
That's one of the things I love about our group at the moment is there's so many people in there that want to be the match winner. Today, you could have told yourself it's a pretty flat wicket. Sun's out, but Starkey, Lino, Boland, myself, we all kind of got around together and we were pumped for the day ahead. Really wanted to give it a good crack. And same with the batting group. So I think we love playing at home. We love playing test matches, and this was one of the bigger ones you're going to play, and everyone was up for it.
Yeah, cricket commentator Fazir Mohammed joins us via Zoom to share his thoughts on what was certainly a terrific test match. Faz, it's great to have you again. It's one of those test matches, that you're not sure where to start the discussion. So I'll just open the floor for you, Faz, to really assess what a wonderful game of test cricket this was.
Indeed, it was, and I think that is really what we enjoy. And as I think Lance mentioned it in the introduction at the start of the show just a few minutes ago, the crowd involvement adds to it. When you have a fascinating contest with no one around, it doesn't feel the same. And when you've got a heavyweight contest with the crowd fully engaged and a strong Indian presence and the cheering and the chanting and the fans really engaging in it, it just really adds to the spectacle, because that's really what it's all about. It's entertainment, it's about fans being involved. And when you get the cricket being as unpredictable and as high quality as we saw it over the 5 days, it just really makes it a memorable contest.
Yeah, and since you started on that note, Faz, I would also say that there were times in this test match where the rivalry in the stands was not just matching what we were seeing on the field, but at times I thought outdoing it.
And long may it continue, because what we are seeing is something that has been building for about 20 years. As far as India's greater and greater assurance of themselves, their greater presence. They've got hundreds of thousands of Indian students studying at universities in Australia. It's a significant source of income in the education sector in Australia. So notwithstanding the inherent racism that is experienced often in Australia, you've got a significant number of Indians who live there, who travel there, who holiday there, who said they're coming from North America to spend time, to experience the atmosphere. It's sort of like the Barmy Army when the Ashes comes around in 12 months' time. And I think it really adds to the flavor of this border Gavaskar series, where now you're virtually guaranteed a strong and almost overwhelming Indian presence when the series is in Australia.
Yeah, let's get to what happened on the field of play, Faz. How did India lose this test match? Because, as I was saying in the opening as well, there were so many opportunities for them to seize the initiative, and they just never did. And even when heading into the final session, it clearly looked as if it was going to be a draw, and then somehow they managed to lose the encounter.
Well, as you said, to use your reference to seizing the initiative, I think they let their chances slip through their fingers, literally, with the cap.
Yeah, I think he'll be back.
Yeah, I was going to say Faz froze
yeah,
like the Indian batting in the final session of the final day of this test match, but hopefully we'll have him back. He was about to make the point, yes, and we do have Faz back with us. Faz, you're about to make the point about India allowing their opportunities to literally slip through their fingers.
Absolutely. The chances that were put down, the fact that they weren't able to finish off the lower order of the Australians' first and second innings, especially the reliance too much on Jasprit Bumrah and to a lesser extent Mohammad Siraj, their all-rounders, and yes, the brilliant 100 that was scored. But again, even those all-rounders, their bowling not as effective. So with that, plus, and we're talking about that final day especially, the dismissal of Rishabh Pant, really falling for the trap that was set with the part-time bowling. Some of you might have seen the reaction of India's outstanding former opening batter and captain Sunil Gavaskar on radio to the first innings dismissal of Rishabh Pant, and talking about the fact that he doesn't value his wicket and so on. So there are many different points along the way, Ricardo, where you can say India may not necessarily would have won it, but could have saved it comfortably. But just the concerted pressure of the Australians and this tendency for adventurism, certainly in the case of Rishabh Pant, proved very, very costly.
Yeah, you know what, Faz, so many things that I want to pick up on from what you just said, one of them being the quality of the Australian bowling, the depth in quality of the Australian bowling in comparison to what India has produced in this series. And you spoke to the over-reliance on Jasprit Bumrah. But before I get there, I do want to talk about Rishabh Pant and the way he got out and the reaction from Sunil Gavaskar, especially in that first innings. But I want our viewers, for those who have not seen it, to take a look, and then we'll have the discussion.
Stupid, stupid, stupid. You've got two fielders there and you still go for that. You missed the previous shot. And look where you've been caught. You've been caught at deep third man. That is throwing away your wicket. And not in the situation that India was. You have to understand the situation as well. You cannot say that that's your natural game. I'm sorry. That is not your natural game. That is a stupid shot. That is letting your team down badly. He should not be going in that dressing room. He should be going in the other dressing room.
Yeah, the word passion has been thrown around quite a bit since that dismissal of Rishabh Pant. And then, of course, I'm sure that Sunil Gavaskar would not have felt better after the second innings dismissal by Pant. And I'm sure we'll get a look at the way that Rishabh Pant got out in the first innings. But mixed reactions, Faz, to the commentary from the great man. What did you make of it?
Well, the entire situation, it really begged for a greater sense of awareness. But again, let's put it in perspective. Remember, Rishabh Pant is an attacking player, an adventurous player. Remember, he was the hero 4 years ago at the Gabba when they chased down a first test match victory at that venue. The first time Australia had lost there for almost 30 years. But you look at, again, as you watch that replay, not so much that he got out, which was bad enough, but he was hit in the stomach trying the same shot the ball before. So when you again look at that situation, and mind you, I think what Gavaskar was reflecting as well was his own experience as an Indian cricketer in Australia in the days before international umpires. There was a famous occasion when he felt yet again another raw deal, and he told his opening partner to leave the field with him. And he had to be persuaded to allow the game to continue. So for someone like Gavaskar, who felt that there was always the propensity for a raw deal from the home umpires in Australia, to see brilliant young players essentially frittering away their wickets and putting their team in a perilous position and not valuing their wickets, you could understand that level of outrage.
Clearly understood, Faz, in terms of understanding that level. Do you feel he went overboard on this one?
Gavaskar or Pant?
Gavaskar Faz.
No, because you see, we live in an era now where commentators are too busy being friends with players. Commentators are not, and in all sports, I mean, I live for NFL, but you now have players interviewing players, you now have, former players almost pally-wally with everybody. Nothing is wrong, everything is great, everything is the most amazing thing we've ever seen. So it's actually a breath of fresh air to have that level of reaction from a former player and someone who's involved as a commentator who's contracted by the BCCI. I can tell you, if that was someone of a lesser stature than a Sunil Gavaskar, they would have been shipped back to India already. But you wouldn't dare do that to Gavaskar. And as I say again, because we are now in this era of this pally-wally friendly relationship with the media and the competitors, whatever the sport, I think it's a welcome change.
Interesting that you said if it was not someone of the stature of Sunil Gavaskar, they might have been shipped back to India already. What if he was describing or criticizing someone of the ilk of a Virat Kohli, for example?
It wouldn't have made a difference because Sunil Gavaskar is Sunil Gavaskar. Again, because we're in the era now of Kohli and previously Tendulkar and all of the bright stars, Sunil Gavaskar's position in Indian cricket is akin to a Don Bradman in Australia, to a Sir Garfield Sobers in the West Indies. So yeah, he can almost get away with anything, and therefore, whether it was Kohli, if it was at the time of Tendulkar, I don't think it would have made a difference.
Yeah, well, on the issue of commenting on commentators' views, Faz, let me go here with this one, because Adam Gilchrist, in looking at the Jasprit Bumrah stats of his average currently at 19.52, which is better than Marshall and Garner and Ambrose, was quoted as saying that Bumrah is head and shoulders above these three. Now, I want you to comment on that, because I'm not sure if he means that Bumrah is head and shoulders over Marshall, Ambrose and Garner as fast bowlers, or if he just means based on those stats, triggering those comments. Your thoughts on Gilly's views on that?
I think it's based on the stats. And,
Yes.
and I think it's an immediate reaction because, again, you look at those numbers, and we saw that listing when Bumrah had gotten to 200 wickets
Yes.
with Marshall, Garner, Ambrose. And you see the tally of wickets, 386, 402, 259. And yes, Bumrah is ahead of them statistically, and quite rightly, because he's outstanding. He's the greatest fast bowler India have ever had. He's number one in the world right now. But in the fullness of time, when he's played his entire career, and we certainly hope from a cricketing point of view, not just an Indian point of view, that he has a long, fruitful career, then you can really say if he is almost at the same level of a Marshall, an Ambrose, or a Garner. But the head and shoulders reference, unless I'm reading it completely wrong, I think it was purely on the basis of the stats right now, and certainly not in the context of saying, well, automatically he's better than the three of them.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, Faz. I just wanted to put that there to you because it was presented in some sections of the media as if Gilly was suggesting that Bumrah is head and shoulders of these West Indies greats, which in the context of how he said it, it could be misconstrued that he was really just speaking specifically of the stats, because you are right, Bumrah's career is not at an end. So it's hard for you to suggest that he is at this point in his career a greater fast bowler than the three that we had just mentioned. One of the contentious moments of this test match, Faz, was the Jaiswal dismissal, because Snicko apparently didn't record an audio for the touch on the bat or the glove, but the umpire decision, which we think was a correct one, stood, even though Snicko suggested there wasn't an edge. What are your views on that?
There are a combination of tools that the officials would use. The Snicko, you often see the hot spot as well. So there are many different elements. And in this case, okay, Snicko shows nothing. But if you've seen a clear deflection, as was the case, then the umpire in question, we're talking about umpire Sharafadullah, then he has to go with that. You can't say, well, okay, I didn't see anything registered on the Snicko, but I'm seeing a clear deflection coming off of the glove or the edge of the bat, and just pretend that it didn't happen because I'm not seeing any register on that element of the technology. If you've seen quite clearly that there's a deflection, then that's another element. You go with that as well, because sometimes out in the middle, umpires, when it's a huge crowd and lots of noise and they can't necessarily hear the edge, but they see it, they go with that as well. So this to me was a classic example of an umpire using his judgment based on the available tools and not being a slave to it.
Yeah, and I want to make the point that the downside of this, though, Faz, is the integrity of Snicko. And people will now feel, based on what we have seen here, that maybe Snicko can't be trusted. And if the cynics go in that direction, it just puts a little spin on the integrity of the Snicko advantage that we have as far as science is concerned.
Absolutely, and there will always be those issues. Remember, Lance, up till the time of Sachin Tendulkar's retirement, and this is no coincidence, India refused to use the technology. They basically said, we'll go by what the umpire decides. We're not going with this DRS thing. They refused to go with it and were allowed to play test matches without it. So there's already been a level of skepticism about the technology. There's always been a level of concern as to whether or not the scratch that you see on Snicko, is it the edge of the bat? Is it the boot of the batsman? Is it the bat on the pad? There are many different elements, which makes it challenging in many ways. And as you said correctly, Lance, when something like this happens, obviously it will raise doubt as to the reliability. And that's why there is that umpire's call, which we had a discussion about many months ago, as to the validity of it, how it's used, how it's actually being enforced, and so on. So there are many elements tied into it, because you're talking about technology which is never going to be 100% accurate.
Yeah, we're not going to go back to that umpire's call discussion, Faz. But I do want to get your thoughts on the depth of the Australian bowling attack and whether, especially in this test match, the real difference was the fact that Australia had depth and they could keep pressure on for longer periods, whereas there was too much of a reliance on Jasprit Bumrah for India.
Absolutely. No question about it. We saw, was it on the third or maybe the fourth it was, Bumrah coming on for about 8 spells. One of the spells was just 1 over. Another spell, a couple of overs, and then 3 overs, because clearly, for Rohit Sharma, he was really the only real wicket taker. A little support from Mohammad Siraj, yes, but it was really Jasprit Bumrah over and over again. In contrast, you have an Australian lineup that is well balanced. You've got the 3 pacers who are outstanding. You have got Scott Boland, very attuned to the MCG. You've got Mitchell Starc, despite a side strain or back injury, really giving it his all. Pat Cummins, who's always right there, giving everything as captain and player. You've got the support of the excellent Nathan Lyon. And then you've got Travis Head offering that extra bit of temptation that Rishabh Pant fell for. So yes, the depth, the variety, the balance in their attack was certainly far superior to India's.
Yeah, for sure. I remember in the final over of day 4, Jasprit Bumrah could barely haul himself to deliver that final over when the new ball was taken, and Nathan Lyon, I think, got a couple of boundaries in that to end the day with Australia very much on top. And just quickly, because we have to go to the break, on that Bumrah discussion that we were having earlier, 200 wickets. He is the first bowler in the history of Test cricket to get to 200 wickets with an average of under 20. So that in and of itself is significant, the trajectory that he's on. But he is 31 years old. One wonders how many more test matches he will have. He does have 43. Will he get to 100 test matches from here? I guess we'll have to wait and see. First, we have some more business to talk about. After the break, we're going to be talking about the format of the World Test Championship and how South Africa are there without playing 2 of the best teams in the world. We're talking about Australia and England. That discussion after the break. But remember, there's still one more test match to come in this Border Gavaskar series. And we have you covered here on SportsMax, the final test, the 5th one from the Sydney Cricket Ground. And you can catch every ball starting Thursday from 7:30 p.m. Eastern Caribbean time, 6:30 in Jamaica.